The name was kind of like made up pretty fast. I also had to find it out again later, but it's going to be mostly about ethics. I am Merijn. I study philosophy. I try to see what is the ethical input that we got here. First, like a bit more than a year ago, I was a Marxist, and I got from that by reading Huxley's Islands. I don't know who hasn't read it. Surely you should. It has a kind of utopianism, and I think this is a very important theme that we should have. Now, I want to start my talk with talking about unity, which is a theme also in my bachelor's thesis, where I kind of try to argue that all is one, which is I think here kind of a space. I don't know if people. You have Spinoza on the one hand, who says that something can be a substance or a mode of being, and a substance is something which is out of itself and in itself. Well, a mode of being is just the way in which this substance is manifested. So, but Spinoza argues this cannot be like the smallest part out of which everything is built up. This should be the infinite thing which holds everything, which is being, which he calls God. And then he says everything within reality is just a manifestation of this. Now, I try to work from a metaphor for me, because I see all around me in reality there is systems forming, and reality is self-organizing in a way. And I make the metaphor that because your body has billions of cells, and they all don't know, like how do we relate, how do we create this order. They just do their own thing, what seems natural to them, and this kind of works. And I want to pull the metaphor that just as we got billions of cells, this planet got billions of people, which are in the same way a unity. Now, this metaphor of the body and the body, it kind of it works in two ways. On the one hand, we can ask, like, what happens if we take the models of our society in which we are relating to each other as people, and we should like try to mirror this. Like, what would happen if this would happen within a biological system as my body? Like things like racism or capitalism, or all these stupid ways in which we are pulled apart from each other. It would, for me, it would be pretty clear that we got some kind of disease. If we look at the situation of the body, there is great poverty, there is war. People are not happy in this way. I feel, and I feel we can do a lot more than this. So. What does with this body? I kind of, for a little bit, want to move into the world of archetypes, because I think we all have inside of us, in our psyche, we have certain psychological entities which relate to each other, sides of our character. But it's the same psychological entities that inside your mind are also out in the world. So you could say, I think Tao Te Ching also talks about this with the sage and the king, that you have. As they try to describe the relation that the sage or a king should have to the people around this, it should also a part of your consciousness which kind of rules and creates order within this consciousness. So there is, in a way, equality, and also you are a manifestation of the psychological field as it is. At a certain point, you cannot step outside of it. So in a way, I think for many people, they're looking at themselves as individuals, and as just that, as I stand opposed to this whole. There is I am not the same. I'm always the subject of reality. And I like to think that as in quantum mechanics, they got the idea of something can be both matter and energy. It can be both a field and an entity, which we can say like it is this. And in the same way, we are this. We are, on the one hand, we are a single entity. We are individual. On the other hand, we are a manifestation of a field. Because your individuality kind of it becomes blurred into this. Like mass. So you are in a way a manifestation of this field of archetypes, of this field of consciousness which we are a part of. Now, on the other hand, you can say there is a disease. We can ask, like, what could we learn in a moral sense from how cells in the body relate? What is healthy? And you think, it is not healthy for my heart to go and think only the ones who do enough for me you know, who by my standards work hard enough to get to my blood. The function of my heart is to get just this blood to wherever it's needed, you know, to use the art that somebody has to fulfill a certain need in reality. And we see now that people don't work anymore for need, you know, people work for producing value, which is bullshit. Now, if we want to see like how can we relate to this body, then we have to see that we are the body. We have to recognize ourselves in the world around us, and we have to treat it in this way. In a way, I think this metaphor of the body also goes to a way of, for example, how you see it in religion, in Bhakti Yoga, where you have the idea that the divine essence is manifested through all, and we try to become a lover of this divine essence. So we try to fall in love with just the deep aspect of reality, which is everywhere and in everybody. Now, I want to move away from the metaphor for a bit to go to Foucault and his late research. Before 75, he did research in how do they control us? How do systems that form us? And then in 75, he took LSD, which he said was the best experience of his life. And later he started to study something which is self-techniques. How do we create ourselves? And in this he kind of researched the Greeks, and he kind of notices that in our reality, the way we go around with language, we have this, everything has to be objective, it has to be true, it has to be, we have this great urge for that, and everything else comes next to that. First of all, it needs to be right, you know. And in the first instance, what he says, the Greeks, they didn't have this. They didn't put this as their priority. They wanted instead to take care of themselves. So how do I care for myself in a good way? How do I grow? And then they asked, like, how can I study reality to form myself? Now, I think. This objectivity that we have, it gives us different problems. On the one hand, when we start talking about ethics, it becomes just a game of telling what's right, what is wrong, just a judging, not a practice which is inside of the world, which is just dissolving boundaries and connecting different things in reality outside us, which is what needs to be done. We need to become more connected. We need to function as one body again if we don't want to die, you know, I think. Then the other problem with this idea of objectivity is that we get a kind of dogmatism, because if I hold my words to be a direct manifestation of truth, then if I'm going to tell it in a certain set of words, a certain language, for example, in Christianity, you can Christianity or different political systems, or there's lots of utopian systems who really want to say, all right, there is some kind of alienation in this world, and we are not living in this connected way that we should be. But people, through their ideology, they just say, no, you should all become revolutionary, because then we're going to have the classless society, or you should all become Christian, so we have the good morality, the blah blah blah, and they clash about the dogma, instead of seeing that, hey, we both recognize that we want something more out of this reality, and we should really go for making it. And this, how do we want to call it? Well, who gives a shit? Really. I mean, if we ruin our own lives with it. Then against that image, I want to put language as more symbolical and genealogical, what we're trying to do when we express ourselves with certain symbols, and it doesn't matter what kind. If I want some sort of ecstasis in our everyday life, because every day is just gonna pass in the way that any other day passes. I think every day, like, couldn't it have been more? Couldn't we have gotten more out of this? Don't we want this together? Because we're all just living in this, well, I wouldn't like to say this to you, but I think society in general is very uncreative. And how do we create this world together? And I see many people. I try to talk about the 60s, how these people, and people tell me, yeah, I wish I had lived in the 60s, and I think, no, this is just people who decide, hey, let's have some fun together. You know, it's not a big thing, and we should do it again. You know? I think it is. Yeah. I don't know how strong the focus is on that, because what I notice in the psychedelic world now, there's a very medical folks who want to draw in the lines a bit to get this information out with a scientific basis. And on the one hand, I think it's right. On the other hand, I think, the planet is fucking dying. We really need a solution, and I think we have at least some sort of solution or some sort of way to pull people forward. On the one hand, it's not for nothing that people in the 60s started to get this idea of love. And also, let's go back to the Greeks, because that was what I forgot to tell about Foucault. When he talks about the Greeks, I noticed that he was quoting a lot of Greeks who have been introduced, who have been initiated at the mystery schools of Eleusis. About what you have great people like Cicero who say this ritual, which was probably psychedelic, was the thing that got us out of the barbarity that we had and got us into living together in a civilized way. And I think, we should make some moves, It's because it's not even about telling everybody we should use drugs. It's just this boundary that they have to dissolve that we got in society, and we got to really go and ask people like, hey, is this the way in which you want to spend your whole life, like running through all these patterns that they created for you? Do you want to do something which is of value to other people out of love? We can. I truly believe that we can have a lot better society than this if we were to work as an organism. I think that the only thing that is away from having some kind of utopia together is really our mindset, really our choice. Like, hey, do we want to do this together, or do we want to stay bitter about each other, being caught up in this reality? Because people, if we both are in this situation of alienation, and we want it to be better, but everybody is bitter about the other people not doing it. They're like, all the other people, they are shit, they are not living in a good way. So people get bitter about that, and then if we have this together, then you are bitter about me being bitter, and I'm bitter about you being bitter, and we never get nowhere. So somebody has to take the first step. Now there are some people who can come to you, and we can just open you, make you shine, get the best part out of you. And I think we should notice more that we are the environment that people are dealing with. We should create an environment which enables people to grow and open up more. We should create some alchemy, because I think you can get, many people think we have to convince a lot of people. I think I have no problems with talking about utopianism, how we can improve the world with whoever, just on the train, a lot of people. Alright, I'm going to stop in one second. Yeah, that's people, if you really go to people, it's not, everybody understands that we need to live differently and need to live from love, and if we don't, just go fucking do it, okay?